I think it's a masterpiece. I think this is an excellent game. I don't think it's perfect.
I was going to say, you almost quit the game twice.
While I was in the middle of it, I was like, this isn't as great as people say it is, but it stuck the landing so dang hard.
By the time you're done, you're like, woo!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Shine Get podcast. I'm your host, Murph, as always, with my good friend, Cal.
Hello, Murph. I have cried 4 times in the last 2 weeks, all from the same video game. That's how I'm doing. How are you doing, Murph?
Didn't quite get to the verge of tears, but also had a similar video game experience. So, we had an overlap in what Cal and I were playing. We both played all the way through Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and we both finished it around the same time within a few days of each other.
I think you beat me by like 2 days or whatever. Yeah,
exactly. I messaged you and was like, I want to talk about this. And you're like, I haven't actually finished it yet. So then you just went back and finished it.
Yep.
But we were like, this is a shared gaming experience for the both of us. We both played it all the way through. And we have thoughts, let me just say.
I was going to say, it's actually pretty rare for us to have a shared game experience, especially one like, we have played a lot of the same games, but definitely not at the same time, definitely not in the same ways, all that kind of stuff. So we figured we should take the opportunity of both of us playing the exact same game at the exact same time that we both have a lot of thoughts trademarked about. It's nice to chat with a buddy about a video game, you know? So here we are. And sorry, everyone who has not played Clair Obscur Expedition 33. We thought about the prospect of like trying to do a spoiler-free section and a spoiler section, and to be frank, we decided it's not really possible. So if that's something you care about, you should skip this episode until you have gotten the chance to play this game, and I think you should play this game.
Yes, highly
That's the one thing we'll say before you tune out if you care about spoilers. Play this game.
Play this game. It's overall good. There you go. There's the spoiler-free segment of it. We're going to go through this relatively chronologically as far as like our thoughts as we went through it, our feelings at different points in the game, and then we'll just give up wrap-up thoughts at the end. So, without further ado, this is our discussion on Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Dun dun dun. All right, so Cal, why did you say want to play this game? Was it just because of all the hype, all the fanfare surrounding it? Like, what got you to play this game?
Yeah, definitely. I think if it wasn't for all of the hype and fanfare, I mean, like, this is, I think by like team size, by budget, this is more of what one would maybe call like a AA game, which I think can kind of slip through the cracks these days. And I think if it wasn't so highly reviewed, if I hadn't seen a lot of hype from it, from people whose opinions I trust on video games and all that kind of stuff, I almost certainly would not have ended up checking it out. I don't buy that many new games these days anymore, except for like, I have my Nintendo series that I like, or here and there. If there's a game series that I like, if there's a new entry, I will buy it, right? But otherwise, I don't buy that many new games anymore. So if I had seen this game kind of sight unseen, or it had popped up on my PlayStation Store or whatever, I would have been like, oh, that looks neat, and then probably would have not interacted with it at all. Murph, did you play this game because I said you should play this game?
No, I actually knew about this game for quite some time. A friend of mine was telling me about it relatively early on and was like, yeah, it seems really interesting, really cool. It's like if a French team just took a big budget JRPG and made a big budget JRPG with not actually the biggest budget in the world, but it feels like that, right? And so that intrigued me because I really like big budget RPGs, like ye old Final Fantasies back when they were turn-based. I like those. Now, I will say right now, I do like Final Fantasy in its current incarnation. I like Final Fantasy 16. I think it's good, but that's probably because I like the Devil May Cry real-time action combat a lot more than other people do. A lot of people are like, I want that turn-based combat. And for that, totally understand. That's how Final Fantasy started. And if that's what you want from Final Fantasy's games going forward, totally get it. So I saw this game and was like, oh, this is giving people what they say that they want. And it struck a chord with me as well because I was told it's relatively linear. Nothing about like huge, big open worlds with infinite side quests and stuff. Like one reason why I'm so hesitant to drop into Persona 5, Metaphor, anything like that is it's like, well, there goes 100 hours.
Like, yeah, the floor is like 80 plus hours if you're moving.
Exactly. So this game was pitched to me as, hey, it's a big budget RPG that doesn't take a bajillion hours to beat. And I was like, oh, okay. It's a relatively linear experience, supposedly has a pretty good story. I'm in. I'm so in. But I wanted to finish Final Fantasy X first because I didn't want to start an RPG while I was in the middle of an RPG. That just means that I finished 0 RPGs.
Yes, no, exactly. I currently have like so many unfinished RPGs on my plate that barring none, like what happened was I started playing another game while I was playing that RPG, and then I never finished that RPG.
Yeah. But what's interesting is that after playing Final Fantasy X, I started playing Expedition 33, and it was able to like kind of color my experience with Expedition 33 very interestingly, because a lot of people will regard Final Fantasy X as like the last great Final Fantasy before it started doing a lot of experimentation with real-time combat. And I know like 13 people don't love, even though it's still relatively turn-based, again, kind of a weird combat system. 15 and 16 skew more real-time, all that jazz. So a lot of people will say that 10 was the last great Final Fantasy. And so coming hot off the heels of that straight into Expedition 33, I think I got a very good look as to, all right, well, what does this game do well? What has helped games like this with more modern advances in technology and game design? I just think that it's a very interesting way to look at it.
I was going to say, well, while we're on it right there, because I definitely have a lot of thoughts about how the gameplay itself works. I'd be interested to hear how it kind of compares and contrasts for Final Fantasy X with you, because Final Fantasy X is a game that I played a lot of on my Nintendo Switch until Golf Story came out, and then I stopped playing Final Fantasy X, and I've never gone back in the last 8 years. And I would love to kind of hear some of your comparing and contrasting thoughts, because I have some compared and contrast thoughts for the battle system, but like compared to Paper Mario, which is low-key what it reminds me of.
Interesting. I've definitely heard that from a lot of people as well. So we're just going to go through this game relatively chronologically. So first thoughts on the game. When you booted it up, got through the tutorial section, like the one thing that I think this game does incredibly well is get you emotionally connected immediately and gets you to understand the premise immediately. Because for those who don't know, hopefully you know if you are watching this and you're watching this or listening to this far, the premise is that there's this big number on this big cliff that keeps counting down once a year, and then everybody over that age will just immediately vanish and supposedly die. Right? Called the Gamage.
Yeah, every year a big number on a humongous monolith goes down, and then all of the people of the new number on the monolith simply die. Meaning there are less and less and less people every year.
And so the game starts out like it's still relatively melancholy, but you're like rooting for Gustav and Sophie. They're like, man, we finally get to see each other today, and we wish there was more time. And I'm like, well, you could just rekindle your friendship, rekindle your romance. It'll be fine. It's just a festival or something that's going on today. And then she just dies.
Yeah.
With like very, very melancholy music and like big swelling operatic singing. I'm like, holy crap. Okay, you got me. You absolutely got me, guys.
I was about, like, from the very beginning, this game really does. I like you said, I really appreciate that from the very beginning. It's very upfront about what the game is about. It's like, here's this very hopeless, yet still kind of hope-filled at the same time world where something has gone drastically wrong. There's this big mysterious figure that every year like kills a bunch of people. This is just the way life works. A lot of people have accepted it, but some people are less ready to accept it. And
yeah, how do you
head
live
off
in a world like that?
Yeah, exactly. How do you figure it out?
Yeah, which I think is very, very interesting. And so immediately I'm like, okay, well, I feel for Gustav. I feel for what he's trying to do. So then immediately after that, they start their expedition, which is everybody who has 1 year of life left is going to go, attempts to get to the monolith, and see if they can stop the Paintress, stop what's going on in this world. Because they're like, the Paintress is what's killing everybody, so if we take down the Paintress, then everybody will stop dying. And this is like, they want to do this, obviously, because eventually your civilization will end. Like, that's kind of the thing that it's somewhat implied, that they'll allude to it sometimes, but like, if this keeps going, nobody will be alive. Like, at what point does this become like a completely lost cause? Like, when all 10-year-olds and under are only alive? Like, that is depressing.
Yeah, how does that work?
It's
I feel like
so
even
depressing.
like 33 is getting to the age where like you barely have anyone left. So yes, I really appreciated the way the game started out. It really like set the stakes, and it really makes you understand why then year after year they kind of just keep sending wave upon wave of people out to this central island to try to figure out how to defeat this big creature that they blame for all of their problems, the Paintress.
Yeah, so then you go and you meet all your friends that are going to be on the expedition. Then you're like, all right, we're going to leave tomorrow on this expedition. We're going to see what we can do. It's still kind of like a death sentence because they know no other expedition has succeeded and come back.
Yep.
So it is kind of like, we're just going to die next year anyway, so might as well do our best with what time we have, but there's no way that we survive this. So it is also very melancholy. And the different part about this expedition is that they take along a 16-year-old,
Yep.
Mael,
Yep.
who is like, they kind of allude to it as like, she's the adopted daughter / sister of Gustav. They kind of like took her in. And so you're like, okay, well, she's coming along. Well, she's probably going to die if they're all going to die. So that seems silly, but like, she doesn't have that many more years left anyway. So like, what else are you going to do?
Yeah,
like,
why not? And like all of her family is effectively going on this expedition anyways. So she wants to go with them.
Exactly. So yeah, they get to the islands, and then again, everybody dies.
Man, what a dang scene. So like the Grammage, like when the Grammage, which is when people die by aging out, I think that like, since it seemed like so normalized, everyone there was used to it. They explain it to you 20 minutes before it happens. You get to have a lot of cool conversations kind of around with people about how it's accepted, how it's sad, how it's frustrating. And then you have this emotional send-off thing where they introduce you to a bunch of these different characters and stuff. And then you set off, and then everyone immediately dies.
Not just dies, they die to an old person. And you're like, how is that possible if
how
nobody can be old?
That's one of the funny things about this game is like they set up a world where someone is screaming something at an old guy, like, how are you old? At an old guy, and it makes perfect sense for the game. You don't have to ask a question about why someone is asking this in this world.
Yeah, so I love the mysteries that they set up. And then, basically everybody dies, and Gustav survives, and he's like, well, I think everybody just died. And so he is ready to end it all, and then gets found by Lune, who is basically the mage. Another interesting thing about this game is that they have like a magic system, and they don't explain it at all. Not from a gameplay perspective, but from a lore perspective. They're just like, yeah, she controls magic.
Yep. She can use runes to control magic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's just like, okay. And you're never going to explain that? Nope, they never do. It just exists in the world. This is how the world is.
And I think this is probably a good spot maybe for us to talk about our overall impressions of the gameplay, like how the battles work and stuff. Because
this is when the game starts.
Yes.
You have like some tutorials and stuff early on, but then at this point you're like thrown pretty into the deep end with the gameplay.
Well, and at this point you have two characters on your team, one of which is Gustav, who pretty much like early on is kind of like a basic attack machine. He has a couple cool powers that hit multiple times, but he has his own unique mechanic where you have to stack up charges by him, which you get by hitting people, perfect dodging and parrying. And then if he gets up to 10 stacks, he can do a really big attack called Overcharge. And I was sitting there thinking, oh man, this is kind of simplistic for a main character, but whatever. And then Lune, the second character that they give you, is a little more complicated. She also has,
I would say, a lot more complicated.
Yeah, a lot more complicated, given that she has her own complete unique abilities as well as all of the characters that you have do. They all kind of have their own unique core mechanic, where hers is all of her attacks, they're normal attacks. They use up your AP, your ability points. But depending on the move that you use, they give you some kind of like they're called stains. I kind of think of them as like runes or whatever. They all create an elemental stain, one of different elements, or a light, which is a wild card. And then a lot of her moves also have like a kicker rider of like, oh, if you have 2 earth stains, this consumes them and it's free. Or if you have an ice stain, this does more damage.
I did not know I looked this up afterwards. Evidently, they explained it the very first time, but I did not know that light stains were wild cards. Yeah, so I was so confused when I'm like, okay, well, if I consume 2 earth stains, the green ones, then...
And you're like, why is it working?
It consumes 1 green stain, and I'm like, how did I do that? Like, I don't get it.
Yep. And... we can talk about other characters when we get there, but one thing I did appreciate about this game, I'll talk about really quick why I associate it with Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. I really appreciated that this game was like turn-based combat plus, in that, yes, it was turn-based combat. You do your thing, they do their thing. Everyone's you just go in turn order depending on everyone's agility stat. Sometimes your opponents will go before you, sometimes they won't, blah, 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 blah. But where it's a little more interesting than just turn-based combat is every attack that you do has a quick little like quick time element where there's different timing where you have to press X. And if you press your buttons at the right time, from what I can tell, it's relatively marginal more damage, and some of the hits with hit ranges, you'll hit more times, that kind of stuff. It never seems like the end of the world if you miss it, but it gives you some marginal upside.
I got to the perfect timing. It's it's very generous quick time events. I got it like 99% of the time.
Yeah,
so
me too.
I honestly don't know what the difference is. Like, I've played enough like Sonic Unleashed and Shenmue. Like QTE, I'm a QTE gamer. I'm pretty good at quick time events. And so those were like very, very simple, I felt, and didn't really add much to the experience, at least in my opinion. But the dodge/parry system, I think is a lot more interesting.
That's where the meat on the bone is.
Yes.
Just like it sounds like, when you are being attacked by your opponents, you can dodge. If you get the timing just right, you perfect dodge. And if you parry with the exact timing of a perfect dodge, you parry. Parrying has upside in 2 ways. Number 1, every time you parry attack, you get an AP. And if you parry every element of an opponent's attack, whether they're attacking you like 1 time or 5 times, you have to hit a parry on every attack. You get to do a counterattack, which oftentimes could be kind of the highest return on damage actually in the game. Some counterattack numbers you can see are pretty wild, but
yeah, this is the part where I struggled a little bit, at least getting into the game, because I felt like the initial enemies, I had such a hard time like getting the timing down. It just felt weird. Eventually I got into the rhythm, and I do think that the overall system is good. I just didn't think that the benefit that you get from parries was worth the cost of parries, because like you said, you basically have to parry within the timing window of a perfect dodge. Like, it's a tighter window to parry than it is to dodge. And you get a ability very early on where if you perfect dodge, you'll get 1 AP anyway. And because so many of these enemies have multiple hit attacks, you have to perfect parry, or do what the perfect dodge thing is. You have to parry every single attack in order to get any sort of damage out of it. So why not just dodge? And if you miss time it ever so slightly, you're still fine, right? So I felt that there was not very much incentive for the parry system, which led me to not parry much at all throughout the overall experience.
I'm a huge parry gamer because the perfect dodge Lumina/Pictos Murph only is once per attack. Yeah. And parries, I mean, how am I supposed to attack with a 7 AP attack every time if I'm not parrying all of their attacks? Because you get an AP for every parry. I pretty much like did a very feast or famine style of gameplay the entire time where...
See, I just don't like that much. I like having a little bit of wiggle room.
It really depended. A lot of the times I ended up like early on, especially with like a boss fight or something, I would try dodging a lot and stuff, but past the point, I just got like good enough at recognizing when attacks came in, I could just parry stuff. And that actually like made the game really easy once I was really good at parrying everything. Because if you parry everything, you start counterattacking everything. You basically have unlimited AP, and you're getting to basically turn the turn-based system on its head by attacking them back for, I mean, at a point hitting the damage cap. And once you get the damage cap turned off, I mean, right now at like level 52, I think I'm counterattacking for like 30 to 70,000 damage.
Crazy.
Depending. Yeah, exactly. So, I liked this system a lot, but I usually went all in on being a parrying king. That was often my approach. So it was interesting to hear that you preferred to just dodge a good amount of the time.
It just gave you so much more wiggle room in your fights. Yeah, you're right. It meant less damage, but that also meant that you didn't just like die, because when you start the game, it gives you like some difficulty options, and the normal difficulty says parrying and dodging isn't required, but encouraged to beat the game. And that's just kind of a lie. You need to at least hit some of these in order to beat your bosses. Because I've played plenty of games. I know I'm not going to run from enemy encounters. You got to get that EXP in order to continue on in the game, so you're not totally underleveled. So every single enemy that there was, I would run into and try to fight them. Right? There are even points where the enemies will respawn after you do a rest at a flagpole. So there would be some points where I would just be like, you know what? I'm just going to do a little bit of grinding here and just go get this guy over and over and over again, because it was kind of hard to beat them. So I feel like I just need to get my levels up a little bit. I didn't do that a ton, but there were a couple points where I felt that it was like relatively necessary. And I did need that for the bosses. Like there was one boss where he gets flower petals, and then he absorbs the flower petals. And what I did not realize is that you could shoot the flower petals.
Yep.
I understood the shooting mechanics, but I did not think of the flower petals as
as
other enemies that
you could attack. Yeah.
Because there would be I believe it was on the ocean floor area, there would be like these guys that are holding balloons. But my brain clocked that as, oh, well, the enemy is holding something, therefore that is something I can shoot. But these flower petals were just like, well, here's this ominous thing.
Kind of something weird and separate. Yeah. And yep.
So that was one of the few things that I had to look up, because I'm like, I'm doing something wrong, because I feel like I've done a lot of grinding in order to get to here. So what am I doing wrong? And the answer is shoot the flower petals.
Shoot the flower petals.
And then I did it. I beat the boss immediately after.
All your problems. Yep.
And overall, I think that in the early game, my biggest problem with this game is it throws a lot of information at you and expects you to pick up on it relatively quickly. Because we haven't even talked about the Pictos and Lumina system, which I did not understand. Because all it is equip it to somebody, win 4 battles with it, and then you can equip it to anybody with a different... It's a different type of system. It has different point values and stuff, but that's basically all it is, right? But it seems so much more complicated than that. And I was like, I don't understand what's going on here. So I think that they could have done a better job at piecemealing information to you.
Yeah, I would agree. This game is full of complicated systems, or somewhat complicated systems that it does throw at you all at the same time. The Pictos and Luminous thing took me a little bit to figure out. I mean, it is just kind of weird that they're an equipable item that you want on you, because they usually give you boatloads of stats, especially at the end game. But what Luminas I have is way more defined by the stats they give than the abilities they give. And then there's a separate system that you can permanently use the abilities that you learn from your Pictoses
After you've used the Pictos 4 times.
After you've used the Pictos 4 times, you can equip it to everyone, but that costs Lumina points. And to get Lumina points, you don't get more by leveling up. You have to get a bespoke item.
You get one.
Oh, do you get some? Okay.
You get one by leveling up, and you get other ones that you can assign by finding things in the overworld.
By finding the items. 1 million more Lumina points to Mael, please. And I found that system a little bit confusing until like it clicked, but I was trying to figure out that system while I was trying to figure out Lune. While I was trying to figure out Lune, and then while I was, learning more and, trying to figure out the right skill spread for Mael, and, eventually then trying to figure out the more complicated systems of Miss CL.
Yeah, everybody has weapons that they can equip. Everybody has a skill tree that you can reset with an item that they give you a ton of. And I feel like they want you to reset that skill tree way more.
Twice.
I used it once. And so I have like 30 of these things. I'm like, I'm not going to reset these skill trees at this point. Like, it's not useful or helpful, but whatever. So yeah, that's my biggest criticism of the gameplay overall. But by the time you get like Mael clicked for me pretty easily as far as like what she could do. She's like, okay,
her stuff kind of just makes sense. It's like, all right, her different moves her between her stances, and she has 3 stances. Cool.
Yep.
Offensive, defensive, and super offensive.
And you probably want the super offensive, so try to get that. And so at that point, everything was like kind of firing on all cylinders for me, where I'm like, okay, I have a full 3 party members, and the world is cool, and I like these characters, and the mystery is continuing on, and like everything was feeling pretty good for me. What about you? Once you had the 3 characters.
I was about to say, where the game finally kind of felt like it was clicking gameplay wise to me was around the Gestural Village, which is where
you get the 4th character.
Yeah, you pick up the 4th character by then you're doing the Gestural Village stuff. You're doing this like 1-person tournament, blah, 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 just killing them over and over again, like 2-shotting them with Mael, of course. And
I was using Gustav.
Yeah. And by then it felt like it really had clicked for me. And I was like, weird that they're giving me a 4th person. It kind of feels all right with 3. And that's because you do get limited to 3 people in your party in battles, which, okay, fair enough.
Yeah. And CL, I think I messaged you about this where I'm like,
yeah, you were like, I don't understand how this works.
Because they're like, okay, you can do things that apply Foretell, and then there's like sun and moon stuff and twilight stuff, and you like apply Foretell and consume Foretell, and all it really is like it's a stacking mechanic, and you apply stacks, and then you use the stacks.
Like, on average, to me, I unfortunately, like, if there was a character whose mechanics I really didn't like, it was hers. But that's because so much of how her core mechanic works and how her weapons work, even too, in relation to some of her core mechanics, it all felt really clunky. Like a little underbaked. It's just like, okay, if you get sun stacks, your sun stacks will give you AP or whatever. And if you get moon stacks, they give you something. But as soon as you get both a sun and a moon stack, you consume all of your sun and moon stacks to go into another mode for 2 turns, which means basically 1 turn. And your damage is boosted. Oh, okay. And then all the different weapons relate to her sun and moon stats differently, but all kind of poorly. Like I never found a weapon for her that I really liked, and a lot of her weapons designs didn't feel very like super cohesive. A lot of it was like build up sun stacks, and then like the final thing was like the third like ability would be like go into twilight mode. And it's just like, okay, but the rest of the weapon wants me to build up sun stacks. I don't know. So I don't know.
She was the only one that I never really used. I used everybody else except her. I only switched to her when I had to.
Yep, exactly. I don't like, one thing I do enjoy about this game is almost everyone I've talked to about it has like all of the different party members in kind of completely different roles. Like, I don't like using CL. I use her in absolute last case scenarios. My wife Jen has CL as her main DPS doing 6-figure damage to people. I'm like, okay, I don't get it, but that didn't work out that way for me. But
if it clicks for somebody, that's great, and that's awesome.
Exactly.
One thing that I think that I really liked about Final Fantasy X and was a little bit disappointed that wasn't included for something like this, is the way that they treat the party members is that you will just get, if you're not using a party member, you will still get like some passive XP so that your character doesn't get like ridiculously underleveled. They will eventually like level up. So say your main party members are like level 20, then the person that you are not using is like level 15 or something like that. So they're going to be underleveled, but they're not like ridiculously outclassed by everything. But what I liked that Final Fantasy X did is that it had like 7 playable characters, and in order to switch between them, you pressed a button, selected a character, and you would switch to that character of all 7 characters in battle without consuming a turn, which I really, really liked. And I think that this game could have benefited for something like that, because I do like using pretty much all the characters, again, with the exception of CL, but I feel like if I had more of a chance to play her without getting punished, and by punishment being I don't get to use the other characters, I don't get as much experience that I need for the other characters, then I might have figured her out more and liked her more. I don't know. I just find that was probably my favorite part about Final Fantasy X's combat system that I wish more RPGs like this game could use.
Mm-hmm. That perfectly makes a whole lot of sense. I really enjoyed the gameplay of this. I think top to bottom, in the moment-to-moment gameplay, I think it really clicked for me.
Mm-hmm. I love the overworlds.
Yes,
the overworlds where they're scaled down or scaled up, and it's just like it's like an old Final Fantasy VI or Final Fantasy VII overworld, but with modern graphics that looks absolutely gorgeous. But it's still at the end of the day just so cute. Love it so much. But we got to talk about the best part of this game, which is Eskia. Tell me I'm wrong, Cal. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, I truly do love little Eskia, the weirdo little freak that you end up using for your overworld transversal, and the best friend of a soon-to-be introduced character in a chronological time order here. The thing about Eskia is I love everything about him. I don't actually have anything else to say about Eskia. I just love how silly he is. I love that, like, canonically he is actually like the most powerful being in the universe, but he's like too dumb and or too lazy to do anything
he's
about it.
I just keep losing my rocks because I feel like it and I want to go on adventures and get the rocks back.
And my rocks are what give me powers to swim, dive underwater, fly. Yeah.
It's like, all right, dude. But yeah. So, one more thing about before we move on to the end of Act 1, the mimes. I got absolutely blindsided by these guys because I was like,
I know, they seem like such little cute optional fights, and then they'll kick your butt.
Yeah, because especially early on, they're like, okay, I'm gonna fight this guy. Oh, he one-shots my party members. Cool. So a really fun part about this game is that if you learn people's attack patterns perfectly, you can still fight these guys. You can go out of your way and fight these mimes and succeed. I was like, I don't really have time for all this. I don't really want to do this. I'll come back and get some mimes later on. And I'm sure there were some ones that you could not come back to, but I was like, I'll just pass on these guys for now.
I was going to say, those guys, I've been meaning to go back and fight some more of them, but I did end up having a lot more success with mimes once I figured out that, like, if you break them, then they take a ton of damage.
Yes.
That mechanic, I was always like, man, these guys really sure can, like, tank a lot of stuff, you know? They sure are not taking that much damage, but okay, I guess that's kind of how it's going to go. And then eventually I figured out that if you break them, it all goes okay. It's a much easier fight then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a big issue for me as well, because I would see like how little paltry damage I was doing earlier on. I'm like, I'm not gonna do this. Like, this is too much. And also, I did not know until the very end of the game that there's a break bar. I thought it was completely random.
It did also take me a relatively long time myself to learn that. I was always kind of like, oh, I gotta break. Okay, cool. We take that. And then one day I just like randomly seemingly saw the bar, and the game became a lot easier for me at that moment.
Because you can actually strategize around that break bar.
and honestly, I'm like sure that at one point in time the game like pointed that out to me and I just missed it on the early deluge of information that we were talking about earlier. But
yeah,
insane.
The takeaway for the gameplay is it's good, but games cannot just tell you a bunch of stuff early on and expect you to remember it all, because you're probably not going to. Okay, enough about gameplay for now. Let's talk about the end of Act 1. Now.
Yes. The game's first big twist.
Yes. Your main character up to this point, Gustav, gets brutally murdered by the old man. And that's about it. At the end of Act 1, that is.
So, Murph, I know that this got to you a lot. I'll go before you.
Go for it.
I honestly was kind of somewhat anticipating something to this regard. Just from like a meta level analysis of like, okay, I think like this game has been mono sad stuff. I don't think they're going to be beyond like player character killing or like killing someone permanently from your party. You know, like I thought like that was an option in the back of my head. And the whole time, especially once I had characters like Lune and CL in my party, I was like, man, Gustav's like mechanic, really? This is like the main character of the game, and it's count to 10 and then use a specific move. Maybe he'll gain a new ability sometime, or maybe they'll kill him, and then they killed him. So I think I was kind of just like so passively unimpressed by him from the gameplay side of things, just from like his core mechanic, that I was like, there's something here that is going to happen. Either he's going to have like a big evolution or he's like going to die. And that's what happened.
Yeah, I wasn't above them killing people. I just thought it would happen later.
Sure.
Just felt more like a Game of Thrones Ned Stark kind of thing.
Sure.
Is what I kept like referring to in my mind. Because that's one where they kind of like make Ned Stark the protagonist. He's kind of your main character. There are a bunch of other characters that you're following, again, like in this game. But Ned Stark's kind of like your anchor to everything. He's like good guy.
The obvious kind of good guy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Gustav is the best of us, etc., etc.
Yeah. So when they got to this point, I was like, oh, we're doing that? Mm-hmm. Okay, then I don't care. Like, this was a very rough, very difficult part for me, because I thought that a lot of the stuff that they had built up was making emotional connections to Gustav. And I'm pretty sure that was intentional, but it felt like their expectation was that once Gustav died, that emotional connection would have been made with the other characters and the overall world. And I didn't get that. I cared about the world in relation to Gustav, not Gustav in relation to the world.
Sure.
So I'm pretty sure, and you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I don't think that's what the developers were intending at this point in time, was apathy, which is what I approached it as. I was like, oh, we're doing this?
Yeah.
Well, I don't care about any of the other characters, and if I'm going to keep going, then I'm not going to get emotionally attached to any of these other characters because I know they could die at any moment. Mm-hmm. Right? And so that really turned me off from continuing on in this game. Mm-hmm. Not to mention, I was like, well, from a gameplay perspective, like, you made me learn all of these systems, and you made me learn Gustav's systems, and you had all of these like potential unlocks that you could get for Gustav. And you're just going to say, no, actually, you learning stuff doesn't matter anymore. Tough. Deal with it. It's like, oh, you're going to disrespect my time from a gameplay perspective as well? Like, I'm good. I'll just stop. And so I did. I stopped playing the game at this point. Which, yeah, did you like take a break or anything, or did you just like kind of keep rolling with the punches? Like,
I kept going. I did not stop playing at that moment. I simply kept going. Which I think kind of helped, because then I immediately saw that they were like replacing a person in my party with a very similar setup and a lot of the same skills and that kind of stuff. Like the gameplay of Verso compared to Gustav is relatively similar, except Verso has a little more of a fleshed out mechanic, kind of. It's still not great, actually. I don't love it either, but
it's just Devil May Cry.
Yeah, it's the same, like hit and don't be hit, but instead of getting the payoff being one of your moves is boosted, you get like a flat damage boost across the board. But
yeah, the higher your rank, the higher your damage output.
Yeah. Except for me, because I never was planning on using him as the DPS, so I used the sword that applied the damage buff, but at 50% efficacy to my allies instead of to Verso. That was fun. But no, it was definitely an emotional moment for me, and I think I had maybe what was more of the intended where like a lot of my I felt a lot more of like a generalized affection for like the ideal of like the expedition and what we're doing here. And also, I had grown really attached to Mael already by that point as well.
See, I just didn't care about Mael. Again, I only cared about Mael in relation to Gustav.
Gustav, yeah.
She is Gustav's friend / sister / daughter type figure. But, yeah. So yeah, that was a hurdle for me. Eventually, I made a post online. I was like, guys, please convince me to keep playing this game, because I don't really want to at this point. Everyone's like, you should keep going, you should keep going, you should keep going. And I'm like, fine, I'll keep going. I talked to you about this, and you were like, you should keep going. I'm like, fine, whatever. So
my wife cold DM'd you and told you to keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I did. And I didn't particularly care for Verso, especially because he
definitely more of a complex character than Gustav.
From a gameplay or from a narrative perspective?
From a narrative perspective.
Yeah. I mean, kind of both, but...
Yeah. Not that much more complicated on the gameplay end, but yeah, something more going on than count to 10 and use the specific move. But
yes,
definitely much more of a morally gray character, a much more mysterious character.
The problem was that you assume control of Verso, and then that's you as Verso in the campfire scenes, and you can go talk to everybody. And they'll go ask you questions. They'll be like, who are you? What are you doing here? What's your relationship to everything? And he would just dodge all the questions. He wouldn't actually dodge all the questions. They would talk about other things, and then text would come up that just say, Verso dodged all the questions. I'm like, this sucks. This is stupid. This is a dumb way to narrate this particular like part of the story, because of course he is a mysterious character that has some connection to the story. You don't know what it is, and you're not supposed to know for now. But them just like asking questions and then off screen saying that he dodged questions is like,
yeah, he wouldn't
so
talk to
boring.
Lune. He would have talked to Lune. Yeah.
So lame. So I really didn't like that.
Sure.
Made me be like, okay, do I really care about this guy? Especially, again, after losing Gustav, I'm like, should I invest any interest in this guy at all? So I continued the game with some trepidation. We did a little funeral for Gustav, which I think definitely helped.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a closure moment.
Yeah. It's like, okay, he's gone. That's fine. We're moving on. So I think that part of the game was relatively effective for me, and I was able to accept this is what the game is. It's fine. It's still going to be a good game. Like the underlying gameplay that I pretty much like a lot of is still going to be there. You're still going to keep going on. That's fine. So yeah, that took a little bit of doing in order to get me to that point, but I did get to that point.
Yes. And I think that was definitely an advantage that I have. It was like the end of Act 1 was like surprising and also like a bit of a gut punch to me. Cause like, yeah, I like Gustav. He was the funny guy. He was the nice guy. He was obviously kind of like the emotional center of the team. in a lot of those ways. And he was presented as the player character pretty heavily for a while there. I think I started getting a little bit disconnected from him though, once I found out that I could like run around as other people. And then I liked some of the ways that I liked the way that like Mael and Lune moved around the map more than Gustav did. So I was just like playing as them. And then also in combat, I'd be like, okay, Gustav's kind of boring. Ooh, Lune, magic. But I had a little bit less of a gut punch, apparently, at the end of Act 1. It was definitely impactful, and a lot of more of it for me, it was like, oh man, how is this going to impact everyone else? Blah, 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 blah. But I totally get what you're saying. I think that totally makes sense too. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of people out there who had similar reactions and either quit playing or thought about quitting playing or upset with the decision and that kind of stuff too. I think from like a meta level, again, I kind of at least appreciate like the courage of kind of trying to do something like that, you know?
The ye old false protagonist storytelling medium, which is a little bit different when it's your
quite
player character.
Literally
again.
The player character. Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, it hit us a little bit different, but what about moving on more into Act 2? How did that
It is really interesting. Like Act 2 is kind of actually the meat of the game in a lot of ways. Not even, I don't know, Act 1 kind of almost in a lot of ways feels like the early meat of the game. And Act 2 can kind of be as long as you want it to be, to an extent, because there is some side stuff you can do. It's when the game, I feel like, opens up a little more so, because that's the point when they're like, okay, cool, now you can swim, which means that you can access the great majority of the map, which also means that rather than being stuck on this tiny little island where the only activities are kind of the story that they're moving you through, there are some more kind of side, oh, you can go over here and do this cool little thing, and you can go over there and do a platforming challenge with some gest rolls, and you can go over to this other zone, and oh, it's a little high level, maybe you'll come back to that later. More of an exploratory thing with obviously the overarching goal of going and killing the Axons. I think you, unless you were really grinding at some point earlier in the game, I don't think you can go straight to the Axons. I think it's pretty much, you'd probably get your butt kicked.
No, because you do have to do some story stuff where you have to go get Minoko, which is your last playable character, who's basically the blue mage, where he learns people's abilities. And they said, well, the way that you learn people's abilities is you have Minoko in your party.
And he collects their feet.
And I'm like, well, I guess Minoko is now part of my active party, so I don't miss anything.
And at first, I was kind of like, okay, I have Minoko in my party, whatever, don't love him. And then eventually I found like an ability spread for him that I really liked. And then I was like always happy to have Minoko in my party, because like the blue mage, you know, I had like the... and I also really liked his mechanic with the masks. He has several different masks, agility, power, and balanced, where each of his moves cares about a mask, and also each of his moves spins the wheel a certain amount of times. So you can kind of set up, okay, I know next turn, I would love a balance mask. That's what I really care about here. So to get to the balance mask, I need the wheel to move X amount of times.
Yeah, you can control
use this move. Yeah, exactly. And then all of the masks, all the moves have a mask that just kind of power it up. Like one of my favorite things I would use, I don't even remember what the attack was called, but it was a buff. It gave everyone on your team, I believe, rush. And then if you were on caster mask, it also gave them another random buff. I liked using that one a lot. Or there was basically the first move they give you. I also don't remember what it was called, but you turn into a huge ice monster and start punching guys. It does like really heavy break damage, fills up the break bar a lot. And if you're on the heavy mask, it just does way more damage.
And that one is an early one, and it's only like 4 AP. So it's a relatively good, like, well, I don't have enough for like a really big attack, so I'll just default back to this. So that felt really good.
And that was kind of the way I had Minoko eventually. I kind of got him just real flexible. Like I had the buff ability, if I wanted to use that. I really enjoyed the ability. It pierces shields.
Yes.
It goes past shields.
So good.
Yeah, it goes past shields and does more damage the more shields that they have, which is really useful in some parts of the game. There's Portier Crash, which deals a lot of damage to all enemies and can break. Usually got a lot of good use out of that. And then some more like a wild card stuff. I don't remember what those other 2 moves were, because I really just use those 4 moves all the time. Like a big burning hammer one. I use that a lot.
I use the one that give everybody regen, and if it's on the mask, give them all a shield.
Yes.
And I'm like, on some of the tougher bosses, I would swap to that one.
Yep.
I didn't use it a ton, but if I'm like, this is going to be a grindy match, then I would use that on Minoko.
Yeah.
So my party overall was Mael, Verso, and Minoko from the point where I acquired Minoko basically till the end of the game. What about you?
100% the same. Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. But I mean, there would be some points of time where like there was a point in the game where like all of the enemies were weak to dark damage. So I had CL with me for most of the time, literally just so she could spam deal dark damage to all enemies, you know, that type of stuff that was in her thing. But yeah, on average, it was very much like I had the very flexible Minoko, who I usually had set up with the same 6, more like 8 maybe. I kind of had 2 moves that I would swap in and out. Kind of like utility character, and then Verso, who is very much, I would say maybe like the table setter. Like I used him to give people powerful. I used him to clear shields. I used him to get a mark onto guys, you know, that kind of stuff.
And then Mael was your damage.
And then Mael was definitely my damage. It's been interesting talking to a few different people. Whether or not Mael is your main DPS seems to be largely related to whether or not you used Mael to beat the gestural tournament at the beginning of the game. Gestural tournament at the beginning of the game, whoever you beat it with, they get a very good weapon. Mael's, the level 4 ability is Start and Virtuous.
Which is insane.
Which is insane. The level 15 ability is all stacks of burn you apply are doubled. And
then there's a Pictos that does that
also does that as well.
So I had that on Mael.
It's called like doubling burn 1. I want to know if there's a second one out there. And I could do even more. I want to find that. I know it has to be out there somewhere. And then the level 20 ability is when you're in Virtuous, your burn deals 2x damage.
Whoa.
So like spoilers, not to cut all the way to the end of the game or whatever, but for the second phase of the final boss, I accidentally, like when I actually beat him, I kind of accidentally cheesed it, because the turn before the end of his first phase, I put something like 100 burn on him and was still in Virtuous. And then it ticked over to his second phase and he started his turn and immediately took 175,000 damage, which left him with like a 1/6 of his health total. And I was like, whew, okay, the phase that I've lost to 3 times is handled. But yes, Mael was my main DPS, and then Verso was a lot more of, especially with the weapon that I liked using on him that I referenced earlier, where rather than him getting the benefit of his perfection stats, he deals it out to his allies at a 50% rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one that I used for Verso most often was, because he was more my DPS, I used the sword that was it hits twice, and if you use a base attack, then you get another turn. So I would basically always I use that with some Pictos to, at the beginning of a turn, get some AP. So just constantly stacked, like, all right, I'm going to use a base attack, get AP, and then it hits twice, and then I'll just use one big attack. Then when I get to his turn again, I'll use a basic attack, hit twice, get all my AP back, use a 9 AP attack, and just do that over and over and over again. So being able to do a regular basic attack plus a 9 AP attack every single turn was just like, my configuration could not beat that. So she was primarily apply burn the character.
Yep. I did always really want to, she has like a very obvious, like kind of like tanky, and there's like a subsection of her abilities which are very much like, she can taunt enemies. She can give herself tons of shell. She can make her shell more effective. If she is attacked while she has shell, do this. If you counterattack a lot, do that. Like, she has a bunch of abilities that are kind of like that are just like in a different wing of the ability tree than I really went through all that often. And that realm, and she also had 1 or 2 weapons that seemed like very adjusted for that. I think there's like a world where if you really wanted to, Mael could be like massive health, massive defense, be in defensive stance all the time, taunt all the enemies to attack her, and then she gets big buffs when I think one of the weapons I had on her was literally like when you take hits, she just gets more powerful or something like that. I don't remember exactly the specifics because I used the same weapon on her for 25 hours of gameplay, but I never even thought about the other ones. If I got a new one, I'd look at it and I'd be like, no, that's way worse than this one. Okay, moving on. But and I assume your Minoko was like my Minoko weapon I used the whole time. It was like, it reverses the wheel and it has another effect. All of his weapons that I found, I was like, okay. The one I liked about this one was that if you used an enhanced ability, like an ability with the correct mask, it gives an AP to both of your allies. That was the main thing that I cared about.
I just kept swapping to whatever the most powerful weapon that I picked up for him was. That I didn't really find one that I particularly liked ability-wise. But
there was one I know that I saw at some point in time that I think like makes him, if you get it to level 20 maybe, it gets to the level 20 ability on the thing I was using. If you use an Almighty Mask, it gives 2 AP to all allies. There was one that like makes you start on Almighty Mask all the time or whatever, which is cool. But
yeah, so overall in X2, that's where like we were saying our builds kind of started to come together. I did end up liking a lot of the campfire conversations, aside from the constant deflections. Most of them were very good at character building. You get to a point where it is revealed that Verso is the son of Renoir, who is pretty much your primary antagonist at this point, the guy that killed Gustave. The problem is it's shown like it's a big reveal, but it doesn't feel like a big reveal because
it is like it's played like a big reveal, but they pretty much immediately confirm that that's the case right when he stops Renoir from killing all of you at the end of Act 1.
Yes, because they're talking about family and it's like, oh, yes, so they're family. And given the age difference, it feels like son.
Yeah, okay, I bet you're not an uncle of this old guy, so...
Yeah, exactly. And so my biggest problem with Act 2 is that it doesn't actually push the story forward all that much. Which Act 1 went along at a pretty good clip and was constantly presenting mysteries and showing you more about the world. And all of Act 2 is like, it shows you more about the world.
It is, I think it is interesting because it incidentally slows down because that's when you can start doing side content stuff, which isn't really related to the overall story of the game. And then you're overarching, once you get Monoko, which isn't really like any main story stuff, your mission is to like go kill these big two guys, like these two big guys. And there's not really explicit story information there either. There's like some interesting implications about the world, about like what the two axons represent in retrospect type of thing, but not,
Yeah. And they're fun fights.
Yep.
Like,
I know you like accidentally like bombed through the dancer fight, right? But
it wasn't accidental. So
okay, sure.
For reference, right before the fights, there is a big dude that's like spinning stuff. And then they're like, okay, well, should we fight him? And they're like, yeah, we should probably take him down. That might give us an advantage against the big axon. And so I'm like, okay, cool. So you walk up to him and then it's like, he's not attacking, he's just sewing. Do you really want to bother him? I'm like, well, they said it would give me an advantage, so yeah. So I did it. Then after that, all I got was a single pick toss that said, well, now you're immune to charm. I'm like, well, that means that charm is going to be part of this boss fight. So I went and immediately grinded it 4 times and applied it to all of my characters. And guess what?
It is way harder, rather way easier if, you can't be charmed.
But the game told you that. The game straight up told me, you'll get an advantage if you beat this guy. Here's the advantage. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't think of it like that hard. I was like, okay, I bet this guy will do something in the combat if I don't kill him, which he does also do that. He like gives her shields and stuff if you don't kill him.
So I didn't even know that. I just thought it was the charm thing that would be helpful.
But I only knew that because I talked to my wife Jen about it because she did not kill him. She was like, I don't know, he seems like a cool enough little passive guy. Yeah, he gives her shields and stuff, which is cool. But I enjoyed that fight a lot. I didn't like get through it super quickly or anything, but it was like a beautiful fight. I really enjoyed a lot of the that whole area was really beautiful in general, and then like the fight against the other Axon, the mask guy, was also really cool. It wasn't beautiful, but it was really sick.
Yeah, I think that one left more of an impact on me.
Sure. Partially
because when I was doing the second Axon, did you fight them in order? Masked guy and then dancing lady?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I did the same. When I was sick at this point. And so I was just playing through the game, and then by the time I got to the dancing lady, I was like, I've been staring at screens for too long. My eyes are hurting.
Sure.
And so that definitely colored the experience a little bit more negatively. But that is, I completely recognize that is entirely my fault and not the game's fault. They are both good parts of the game. It just, because of the circumstances, it hit me as hard. It is what it is.
I also got to say, maybe the like visually coolest boss fight, that's not the last one, because the last one is sick, as it should be. The Dueliste, the like 4-armed guy with a huge sword, that was the fight that really stuck in my mind. He was a really cool one, really fun one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the end of Act 2, one thing that I didn't particularly love about that is you are going to the monolith, and as you go through everything, it's just a bunch of reused assets. It's just like, here, you're going through this part of the world that you have, that is themed around a place you've already been. And here's another part that's themed around a place that you've already been. And obviously they try to theme it around stuff, and it's like, oh, well, it's because it's like this warped version of this whole world all coming together. And it's like, yeah, I know you're a small team. I know what you're doing.
Yep. Yeah, especially toward the end of the game, I was definitely feeling that a little bit.
Yeah, it started getting a little bit repetitive.
There was like one part or whatever where it was kind of like, oh, cool. This is, it's fun to go back through the memories a little bit, but it did feel like a little bit like, okay, we're stretching out the game here a little bit. It was cool though, because then you got to see, like, that was where they were showing a lot of like the abstract backstory of the family at the center of everything, which was kind of neat, but I did get a little tired of that part. I do gotta say.
And so, Act 2, the ending of Act 2, where you defeat the Paintress, it all fell pretty flat for me, because I don't know exactly what the dev team was going for as far as like your feelings overall, but for me it was just like nothing but confusion. Because I was like, okay, I still don't know. I'm pretty sure the Paintress is like his mother, because we've seen a father figure, a son, a daughter in Alicia, who has the burnt face that keeps popping up. But they don't talk about the mother. Well, the Paintress feels like a motherly figure. It's probably that. And so I go in with that kind of expectation. And the whole thing is like, Verso says, oh, well, Verso's dead, in the middle of the talks/fights with the Paintress. And I'm like, okay, well, that's weird. And then they defeat the Paintress, and it feels like it should be sad, but also like nobody's asking any questions. And I'm like, what am I supposed to be feeling here? Like, am I supposed to be feeling sad? Am I supposed to be feeling like, congratulations, they did it, like, good for them? I was mostly just like, I don't know what's going on, and they haven't explained anything.
It is, I think it was really weird, because this is the goal of the game, right? Woohoo! Yippee, we did it. We beat the Paintress. And I felt definitely some of that, but they had already really laid some tracks of like, actually, maybe the Paintress should not die. Maybe there's something more going on here than you think is going on here. And so I was kind of trepidatious about it and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of like Renoir and Verso talking in that fight beforehand was very much just like, do you know what you'll do if you kill her? Do you want us to all die? And it's just like, well, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, Verso specifically said that he wants to die up to this point. Because he's like, she is what's keeping me immortal, and I don't want immortality anymore. I want to die. It's like, cool. I get
Fair enough. Yeah, I get it.
Oh, that Renoir fight, by the way, I had such a hard time with that, and a little bit of the one previously because of the vanishing.
Yeah,
where he would just go up and just like vanish a person. I could not get the timing down to save my life. And so every single time I would play the fight, and if you vanish one of my characters relatively early on, I would just reset. Because I'm like, I can't do it. I don't have the DPS in order to get all the way through. And eventually he would probably try to vanish another one of my party members. And I'm like, I cannot get the timing down for this. It's really weird. I don't know why I cannot get the timing down for this, but I couldn't. And just like insta-killing my party members without possibility of revival sucked. That's it. That's all I have to say about that.
Yep. I also, until I could get that like dodge, I did not try to parry that move. Once I got like the dodging for that move down, or was it had to be it was chromatic counter maybe?
It was a dodge into a gradient counter.
Sure.
But the gradient counter timing, you would have to like, you would go into the gradient mode. This happens a lot with the gradient counters where the timing's not actually that intuitive.
Because it doesn't happen slows down.
Yeah, because like if you press the counter button, the gradient counter button, the second that it slows down, you're gonna miss it. You have to like let it go into gradient, wait a little bit. It changes from character to character, or enemy to enemy, that is, and then you press the button. And you're like, okay, this is weird. Anyway, rant about that over.
But the main twist, which again, I think I was less confused by and all of that kind of stuff than you were, because I kind of got to the end of Act 2 where everyone dies. Everyone dies because actually the Paintress was the one protecting everyone in the world from being killed by Renoir, for a lot of inter-family political reasons, blah, 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 blah. Everyone dies. You read this emotional letter from Verso's sister to Verso, and then you watch everyone just die. Back in Lumiere, all the kids, all your party members, everything. And then it goes to an epilogue where you are a very burnt up Mayel looking character with a different name, go figure, that then appears just in this mansion, which you've seen plenty of times before throughout the game. But I was very confused, but I got that to that point at like 7 p.m. on a Saturday, and I had only been playing for 35 minutes, and I was like, cool, wow, interesting. Like, this doesn't feel like it's the end of the game, so I'm gonna keep playing. I'm gonna see where this goes. And then they do kind of explain everything relatively immediately. But you had been playing for hours and hours and hours, and you were sick, and you got there and you were like, oh, I've got to go to bed.
Yeah. And I was like, this is weird. I don't know what's going on.
What's going on? I was like, just play the game. Play 15 more minutes of the game, Murph. I'm begging you.
Because it seems like, all right, fine. We finally got to a stopping point. And I think the fact that the lead up to the monolith was so long and so repetitive really hurts this moment, because it's so much of like, well, you're playing through all this. And I'm sure that there's plenty of other people that, like me, were like, I'm close to the end of the game, so I'm just going to push until I get to the end of the game. And then I got to what felt like the end of the game, and then it said epilogue. And to me, epilogue feels like, here's some extra stuff about the game. Not, the game's not over, you should keep playing. Which is actually what it is.
Yes.
Right? Like, it should have said Act 3 there instead of epilogue. But it didn't. So I got so confused and was like, Cal, what am I doing wrong? What did I miss? Everybody just died. I did not understand the letter. They were talking about family. I don't understand everybody's relationship. And then that is where they overall say, okay, they like lore dump a good bit about it. So let's see. So the Paintress is the mother. Verso is not actually Verso. Verso is a created copy of the actual Verso, who's dead. The Renoir that we've been fighting is also a created copy. The Alicia that we've seen is also a created copy. So basically, the entire family, sans the mom, has a created copy inside the canvas, which is what the world is. The world is a canvas that was created by the actual Verso when he was a kid. And so the actual Verso...
But the real Renoir is also present, but he's hanging out with us.
He's the curator.
Yes, he is the curator. He is secretly still hanging out, hiding, it's been Renoir the whole time who has been killing everyone with the Grammage, and it is the mom, the paintress, that is protecting everyone against his influence, but she is slowly weakening because she's been in this canvas for way longer than you're supposed to be in a canvas. Because everyone is magical magicians that can paint things they want into existence.
Yeah. And so what happens...
We've been inside of a painting the entire time.
And so what happens is basically the real Verso dies in a fire. And then the mom, Aline, is so depressed and sad that she goes into the one canvas of Verso's from when he was a kid and like kind of loses herself there. And that's why there's so much like fantastical elements, like Esquier was Verso's doll as a kid. The Gestrels are just like fun little funny characters because they were created by a kid's imagination. And so Aline, the mother, goes in and she actually creates all of the humans. So she populates it. And then when Renoir goes in and tries to follow her, then that's the point where the fracture happens, where they like try to fight each other. They split off. And then Aline like seals herself in the monolith. And then Renoir's like, okay, well, I'm going to try to push against her power. And all that she can do is like slowly get drained of power and put a number there to warn people like, hey, you're going to die. I'm slowly losing power. It is what it is. But then when you kill the paintress, then all of her power's gone and everybody immediately dies. Anyway, so it's this big complicated lore dump, but it makes you realize, oh, okay, now everything makes sense.
Yes.
I just really, really wish, I don't know how they could have done it, to be fair, but I wish that we could have had, again, not a giant lore dump all at once, and it slowly be explained overall a little bit more through Act 2, because you don't actually get anything that moves the game forward from like new revelations perspective.
It was really interesting to me. I felt like there was a lot of little like dribble hinty stuff here and there.
Yeah.
In retrospect makes a lot of sense, but in the moment it doesn't feel like much. Yeah, exactly.
So I was like, I need something to hang on to for this game because you killed the thing I was invested about in this game, and you are not giving me much more.
And then we
not solving any mysteries. Yeah. So that was. Again, when we hit Act 3, everything gets explained, and then Renoir actually reveals who he is, and he's like, hey, we need to get rid of this canvas because your mother was like killing herself by being in here. And so we got to go. We got to get rid of this canvas because she's just going to want to come back in and everything. Like, I don't want to destroy it, but we got to. So then at that point, it is revealed that Maëlle is basically the daughter, Alicia, but she lost herself when she went in the painting and basically got reborn as Maëlle. So she has the memories of both Maëlle and the real Alicia, the real daughter. And so she's like, yeah, but I've lived a life here. These are all my friends. You can't just do this. And he's like, yeah, but
yes, I can. We have to, actually.
Yeah,
also,
we
it's
got
not
it.
healthy for you to be here.
Yeah, like you've lived like 16 years here. That's way too long. And so you got to get out of here.
Unfortunately, this is like when I realized that Renoir was right all along. Actually, that was...
Yeah.
Act 3 is when they reveal to you that Renoir is unfortunately a very sympathetic villain who has a lot of things right and maybe could have gone around things a little bit differently, but I get it. Undergoing a lot of grief, a lot of family trauma and problems going on here, which makes it a lot more cloudy. But you know, when it's all revealed that Renoir is just a very concerned husband and dad doing his best to try to kind of patch things up in a really bad situation, it suddenly makes him so much more of a so much more of a like understandable villain.
And this is where literally all my story quibbles like kind of fell away and the story just like clicked for me, because all of a sudden, now that I understand the familial relationships, that was just like, all right, family story, I get it. I love it. I love stuff like that. Anything like father-son, father-daughter, any sort of stories that revolve around that, I am a sucker for. And so now that we understand what's going on with the family, all right, I'm there.
It is kind of really interesting because, incidentally, I think the game does maybe quite well. I thought it did it quite well. I would assume you did not quite think it did it quite as well, but like did tell kind of almost like 3 different stories relatively well, which is like the first third of the game is kind of almost like this adventure story where we're off to kill the paintress, and we hit some really big things along the way. And then Gustav dies, and like the heart of that is kind of ripped out. And then it's kind of like, okay, we're still on an adventure. We're still moving forward, but now it's like all mysterious, and the story doesn't really move forward at that point, but there's a lot more stuff to explore around the world, and you get a lot of things dripped onto you. I think story wise, that's the weakest part of the game, but is also like gameplay wise, the meat of the game, which is a little strange.
Your connection with the characters, I think that is where that
grows exponentially rather than overarching story being told. There's a lot of like character stories being told instead, which I did like a lot.
I did too. And looking back on that, I realized that, that was important. I get why they did that. But in the moment, I was like, please just give me anything to latch onto here.
Yeah. And then the end of the second act and the beginning of the third act through the end of the game, then it becomes a story about, I forget the last name of the family right at this second, about their family and their overarching trauma and their each individual problems and how they all affect each other because they are a family. Which I think that the clicking into place of what has been going on the entire time, I wouldn't be surprised if I go back and play the game and realize that it's all face up from the very beginning about what the game is actually about, if you know what's going on.
Yeah, it's hinting at everything the whole time.
Yeah, that's what I've heard from several people already, is like, if you start that New Game Plus, you're like in Lumiere and you're seeing things and hearing things and you're like, wait a second, it was here all along. But Act 3 is where like the whole time I was engaged, because I was like, okay, it feels like they're building something here. Some really interesting twists and turns along the way. There's this like really mysterious stuff going on with the family. I kind of also always suspected that Mael was like some kind of weird relation to the sister, because they looked exactly the same alike. And the game kept pushing them together all of the time, and Renoir kept saying a lot of very mysterious things about Mael. But I agree. End of Act 2, like, I said this to you, I think they made like a lot of really bold choices and risks that, like, if they didn't nail the end of Act 2 into the beginning of Act 3, and then also how the game itself actually ends, I think it all would have been received very poorly. But I think it all ends up, you know, regardless of how the pacing may be or whatnot, all of the things they laid out kind of like get to a point where it all works really well. And I think that finally comes to a head. Granted, it does take like 20 hours to come to a head. I think it did take me about 20 hours to relatively quickly move through the end of Act 2. But, which I guess in the grand scheme of things is a quite short video game. But another thing, I meant to say that I appreciated that up front when you did too. But man, I like that this is a game that I could finish in under 40 hours. That's always a thumbs up in my book.
Now, my question for you is, well, first statement. Act 3 is weird because you don't actually have to do anything in Act 3. You can go straight to the end. Now, did you do anything before going straight to the end? As far as Act 3, did you explore more of the world? Because you're given the ability to fly. You can access more areas.
I did like one thing, because I had seen online, like, there had been a bunch of people online who are pretty loud, like, spoiler free. There will be a point when the game does just let you go straight to the final boss and you can do a lot of other stuff, because the game does not level scale. They don't communicate this super well, but it's kind of implied that you can't go straight to the final boss, and you probably should, or else you'll be way over leveled for the final boss. And I think, like, if there is a gameplay failing in this game, it is right there. Like,
yes,
the game works extremely well. If you end Act 2 and immediately go and fight the final boss, go immediately fight Renoir. If you do that, depending on where you were level-wise, you may be slightly under-leveled or whatever. I think that's kind of where I was at. It took me a decent amount of tries to beat Renoir, but he was just, I think if I had been 2 or 3 levels higher, it would have been normal, or maybe a little too easy.
52, I think, is when I tackled him.
I was like 48 through 51, I think is about where I was at. But I think that it really could have been communicated better, or, like, you know, maybe the final boss could simply be level scaled or something, because I saw a lot of people very disappointed online where they're like, cool, they've opened up the whole world. I went and did a whole bunch of cool stuff. And when you're in the campground, you start getting all the kind of like final missions for all your characters where they're like, Verso, please, I need to go to this place so I can finally have closure about my husband dying, or maybe he'll be coming back to life. Oh, Verso, please, let's go over here and do this thing. I really need to go see Alicia. All that kind of stuff starts getting laid down if you go to the camp.
Yeah, I don't know why that's not part of the like normal progression of the story.
It feels like if that stuff, you were going to do that stuff, maybe the boss level should have been closer to assuming you had done 80% of those or similar amount of content, right? Yeah. Like that's of all of if I have very few complaints with this game, and the fact that Renoir, the final boss, is leveled basically to where you will be coming out of the end of Act 2 is very frustrating to me.
Yeah, because like there is so much that I missed because same as you, people are like, hey, if you want a decent challenge, you should go and just finish the game. And then if you want to do more in the game, you can just back up, reload a save, and then go back to things.
Yeah, the game also does not communicate to you that it is the classic thing of like, you can go and beat the boss, and then the game will know that you have beat the boss, and that does change some things or something. But you just, after you beat the boss, do the endings, it just pops you right back outside of the boss, and then you can go do whatever you want in the rest of the game. But that's not communicated by the game.
Yeah. So like the whole bit where you go see like the painted version of Alicia, I was under the impression that like these are like small side things. No, this is a full-on level. Like you are climbing a tower, brand new assets, like a whole bunch of new enemies, characters, stuff like that. And you're like riding balloons to the top.
Is, depending on where you're at level-wise, a pretty tough fight.
Yeah, I definitely was not leveled for it, and I was like, yeah, whatever, I'm gonna brute force this. I'm gonna brute force this.
Yep.
So I beat it at like level 55.
Sure.
And I had no business beating her at level 55.
Yep.
But
it's all about hitting enough parries on her 6 to 10 hit attacks.
At the same time, like it gives you very relevant story information where it's like, hey, actually, I let Gustav die. And you're like, should this be a side thing?
Yeah,
I feel like this should just be part of the main story.
It's just like, dear Verso, could you have interfered and kept Gustav alive? And it comes up with a pop-up that says, yes, truth, no, lie.
Yes. And why is that just like, this is a full level, good stuff to the story. I don't know why they didn't just make you do that and then make the end fight a little bit harder, because it felt like I went and did this after the fact, and I was like, oh, I didn't know there was stuff like this here. I would have spent all this time doing this in the first place, but I just took everybody's advice and was like, yeah, I'm curious to see how it ends. So I just went straight there. So yeah, I did that, and now I'm back to Minoko Station, and it's basically the same thing where it's like, yeah, it's just more stuff. And this one it's kind of reused. It's a reused area, but it's completely new parts of Minoko Station, right? So let's talk about the end. The ending of the game.
Yep.
You run there, and we have like basically summoned a bunch of like ghost people to get us to the end, to fight for us. Music swelling. It's all great. And then you get to the end, and then Renoir's like, same thing. Hey, please, we gotta shut this whole thing down.
Yeah, we gotta get out of here. We have to burn this canvas, or else your mom is going to keep coming back in here and killing herself, escaping the real world and her problems, refusing to live in a world where her son is no longer alive. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you're like, no, I am going to fight for this world, and so you do. And then in the middle of the fight, Aline comes back in and helps you out, and you're like, and Renoir's like, yeah, she's killing herself by doing this.
Yep.
Like, she should not be back in here.
That was such a cool, like, two moments in the final fight that just really got me hyped up, in addition to already being pretty hyped up because the soundtrack was so insane. We can talk more about the soundtrack in a second, because I think it is one of the defining strengths of the game overall.
Agreed.
But man, when you get Renoir down through the first quarter of the fight, and then you're like, okay, cool, this is going pretty well. And then it's just like, he takes a turn to summon all of the Axons. And then though they're useful. They pretty much buff them and give them kind of some extra attacks here and there. They're not super impactful in the grand scheme of the fight, I think, beyond making it a little more tough. But like the visual is just like such an oh no moment. Just like, I'm sunk. What am I supposed to do? These guys that gave me a tough fight all on their own. He's summoning there's like 4 of them or something. There's like 3 you can fight in the game and then a 4th you can't fight in the game. That was just such a like holy cow moment for me. And then also that moment when you basically get him to the second phase, the dancer Axon like revives him. It's like, oh no, there's nothing we can do. Can we kill her? And then mom, Aline, comes back in as the humongous paintress. And then you just get to watch her kaiju fight the dancing Axon.
I love stuff like that.
Which is her representation of in the world, from what I understand. The dancing woman is also her. The dancing Axon is also her.
Yeah, I didn't really get that the Axons
my understanding
were
of thing.
Like connected to each individual family member. I was like,
really, I was in on it because they were just like the mask guy was just doing this whole speech about like so many people have so many masks and are so duplicitous and have so many things going on, and everyone is just like sad, and Verso's just like staring at him. I'm just like, this guy's Verso. This is Verso.
Yeah, I just got that like Verso connected with him and was like, he gets it, but not that. Yep. That is that.
It's just
anyway.
The secret about this game is that every character is the family all the way down.
Yes, because the canvas, the world is like a representation of them.
Those two moments were super cool, and then also like the really cinematic attack he had of like him maximizing his power or whatever was really cool. I really appreciated it did feel like a truly epic last battle. Cinematics were there. It was relatively challenging for me, maybe because I was a little underleveled, but
yeah, it took me about 3 tries, which always feels like pretty darn good.
Feels like a sweet spot.
That's tough, but it's not frustrating.
Yes. It's like the first time you get your butt absolutely kicked and you're like, whoa. And then the second time is really like getting your feet under you. And then the last time you're like, okay, I've got it. Oh man. Oh, that was a pretty bad hit. All right. I've really got to pull these dodges out. Oh man, I did it. You know, if like you have it down, but it's still a little tough and you get there in the end, or you're like me and that's the way the first part of the fight feels, and then you cheese the entire second half of the fight by dealing nearly 200k damage to him. But you know, and then the ending, you beat Renoir, and you know, he gets evaporated. The paintress, I think, leaves as well. But before Renoir goes, he pretty much opens up this portal, which goes into this weird... It's kind of like... I think of it as like... of course, I'm going to relate it to a Brandon Sanderson thing, where in the Brandon Sanderson world, there is like the spiritual realm, which is outside of the physical realm, but you can like go there and you can kind of control the world from there. It felt like a spiritual realm portal where the young Verso is like fading away, still in there painting somehow. Is very much like implied that this young little Verso, which is just falling apart, ancient, is somehow maintaining the world by what he is doing.
It's the last piece of Verso's soul, is what it is. And so that's why everybody keeps going back to this canvas, because now that Verso's gone, the only bit of Verso that's left is his soul that was left in this painting.
Yep. And then you pretty much get into a big fight, Verso and Maëlle / I forget her real name. Alicia, because Renoir basically leaves the painting. Like, you defeat him, but he still pretty much only gives up because Maëlle pleads him to let her have more time in the painting, because she misses her brother, obviously, but she is also Maëlle. In addition to being Alicia, she is friends with these people. She loves this world. She loves Lune, blah, blah, blah. You know, like, this is still her lived experience, in addition to part of her knowing that it's like, quote unquote, fake. But Verso knows that she will not leave. And Verso, as has been hinted many times throughout the game, and by hinted, I mean said explicitly, Verso is ready to die. He is tired of being he knows he's not real. He knows that he is just like an amalgamation of Verso that was put into creation by his grieving mother to like serve a very specific purpose. Like he knows that, you know, and he's ready to just be done. But Mayel wants to keep the world around for forever. And so you have to choose like, all right, I did really enjoy the incidental shadowing. The first and final battles of the game are pretty much the same, where it's the first battle of the game is Gustav versus Mayel, and the final battle of the game is Verso versus Mayel. But the vibes are extremely similar. I really appreciated that.
Mirroring. Ooh,
yes,
good storytelling.
Exactly. And so you have to choose Verso or Mayel, and the vibes are very much just like, okay, I choose Verso, probably destroy the like is basically the choice to like destroy the canvas and force Alicia to like go out into the real world. And then Mayel, the vibe is very much just like, we're all going to live happily ever after here in the thing. And I was really on the fence about it, man. But I was just like going back and forth. And then like, I realized I had this like really visceral negative reaction actually to the thought of like a fantasy world where everyone is happy and blah, 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 blah. And like letting Alicia abandon her family out there in the real world. Like, I don't know. It's a complicated ball of emotions that I never really have figured out yet, but I pretty much just like snap picked Verso. Like once I realized that feeling, and I played through the Verso ending. But you picked Mayel, right?
Yes, because for me, it felt like, hey, we've been fighting for this world for the entire time. Like, obviously, Verso was fighting for something that was slightly different the whole time, but basically every other party member is fighting for their continued existence. And so to me, it felt like if I picked Verso, that would betray everything that I was fighting for from a player's perspective and from basically the entire party, the cast of party up to that point. So I was like, no. I want to pick Mayel. And one thing that's I was kind of like digesting is that like Verso said, hey, you just lied to your father. Like, you're not ever going to go back. And I was like, that's the part that I didn't love, because I felt like, I don't know, this is just me. There could be a point of you leave the canvas around and get the heck out of there, and you guys just live. You live your life. And it's fine. But obviously the narrative was saying you cannot have those. And so I was like, okay, well, I think like staying in the canvas would be the better choice, because again, it's one of those things. Like, one thing I really liked about the way that the story went was that it talks about like, what is life? Like, all these characters that you've met, are they living beings? They are painted, they are created beings. But by destroying the canvas, are you killing all those people? And I was like, that's a pretty heavy subject. And like, does this one character's decisions and actions, like regardless of what she wants and what Verso wants, should everybody else in the canvas be beholden to those
things?
People?
Yeah.
And so my thought process was no. Mm-hmm. No, we should keep the canvas around. And if Mayel sacrifices her life to do that, which is what I was expecting to happen in the fight, if she sacrifices her life to keep the canvas around, then I still think that will have been worth it. But yeah, so the ending that I got, Mayel beats Verso, and the canvas stays around, and everybody's happy. She's able to resurrect everybody. She resurrects Gustav and CL's husband. And I was like, excellent. My boy Gustav is back. This is the ending that I was hoping for. And
there's also a long drawn out section where Verso is begging Mayel to let him die, and she refuses.
Yes.
That's how it starts.
Yes, it starts with that. And then they're all at the opera house, and then Verso sits down at the piano. Everything goes silent. And then you're like, okay, what is going on? And Verso's like having a real hard time like playing. He's older. So basically Mayel was like, well, if I let you get old, will that be a life you want to live? So that seems to be like what she said to herself, of like, this is still humane. I'm still giving you the best that I can of
like
what you
want.
want.
Normal life.
Yes.
Yeah. And to me, the vibe too was that like CL and Lune definitely looked way older to me too.
Yeah, it was supposed
Gustav
to be
didn't, but
it was supposed to be progressed
Yes.
past that time.
Yep.
And so it was the happily ever after, but very clearly Verso was not happy, did not want to play, just wanted to die, and then you get jump scared by a bunch of ink on Mael's face, which looks like what her mother was going through when she was stuck in the canvas and was killing herself. And so you're like, well, yeah, that is kind of what I fought for. I fought for Mael was going to die to keep this canvas around, and Verso is not going to be happy, but everybody else is. And so it is a very, very bittersweet ending. And some people hate this ending. Like I've looked online because I went and watched the other ending as well. Before we get to compare and contrast, I guess.
Yep.
Cal, what was your experience with the Verso ending?
The other ending was definitely sad because the other ending is very much like the other ending is very much just like, all right, sorry, Mom, sorry, Alicia, we're Verso is gone. We are going to remove the canvas. The canvas is gone. There's a very sweet, there's some very emotional moments of you get to watch each party member individually die. I would say the waterworks for me started around when Verso, Esquier, and Monoko
all hug. And he's like, I'm going to miss you guys. Oh.
Yeah, and then they evaporated. And then CL and, CL and Verso kind of had like a little bit of a touching moment. And then she died. And then Lune was just like, distraught.
Bro, what the heck?
Yeah, like those betrayal eyes, man, something else. And that's definitely where the waterworks started for me. And then, you go to the scene of the family all together again outside, around Verso's grave. It seems like, I mean, I'm sure the grave had already been there, but it seemed more of like a final send away because obviously the last piece of his soul is now finally gone. Like Verso is gone. His canvas is not even left. Right. And a really touching moment in between the parents. The mocap on that was crazy. I don't know what they did for that, but I really, really touching moment in between the parents out there. And then it really got me, Alicia is left standing outside alone. She looks out over towards the Eiffel Tower, and then everyone is there, including Mael, is there, and they all kind of wave goodbye and then fade away. And that's the end of the game. Also
somewhat bittersweet.
Yes,
definitely more somber, but
definitely more somber. It definitely
it feels like that ending has more, it's sadder, but there's more closure.
Yes. Sadder, but more closure, because it's like, to me, it feels kind of like sad, but hopeful in its own way. Where it's like, I really liked the two names of the two endings. The Verso was A Life to Live and the Mael was A Life to Paint. And those were the ideals of the Verso ending that I really liked a lot. Was like, okay, go, you have a whole life to live out there, go participate in it, even though it's hard and difficult, but you have like a family that needs you. I think your sister needs you way more than she would admit to. Obviously, both of your parents need you a lot. Just because you are disabled in a way does not mean that you are not a human. You could live in a world where you are disabled and things are sad and things will be okay. And there's a whole life out there that you can make for yourself, type of thing. Which was the ideals that I was really drawn through. And I felt like that ending did kind of nail that for me. In addition to being quite sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much agree.
The other ending, though, to me, I think probably colored some by the context of doing the Verso ending first, and also just some of the feelings I had about that kind of ending anyways. It's just like, it felt like the horror ending to me. It was like creepy. I felt a lot of creepy vibes. It's just like everyone is so smiling and happy. They're all controlled by Mael. They all do whatever Mael wants. Everyone is so smiling and happy, and we're all having such a great time here at the opera where Verso is going to perform for us. Isn't that so nice? And
then jump scares.
Yeah, like the jump scare to Mael. It's just like I said something. Let me see if I can find it. I'm not gonna remember exactly what I said to you, but it really felt like I was. I mean, and like you said, I think I am somewhat much more sympathetic than many people were from what I've seen online about like the idea of, you know, everyone being happy versus like Verso being happy is a little bit of a different conversation, right? There was something that felt very wrong to me about condemning like a brother who died to save his sister being condemned to watch his sister die, like as the rest of his life is just watching her choose to kill himself, which was definitely like negatively resonant to me in a way.
Mm-hmm. And that's the tragedy of that ending.
Yes. For sure. Definitely.
And so, yeah, a lot of people go back and forth and like, which one's the good ending? Which one's the bad ending? And
there's like, not a good ending. There's not a bad ending.
The developers has said that it's like, it's all about characters' choices.
Yep.
And yeah, like a lot of that just resonates with me so much because like the thought of what is a fantasy world and like losing yourself in a fantasy world, like as gamers, we often just lose ourselves in fantasy
there's
worlds.
A lot of escapism present in the hobby by default.
Exactly. And like the fact that this is a video game as a medium just drives that home so much more, because like after I finished the game and I was like, well, that was really, really good. I loved that ending. I loved all of the story beats and stuff. I'm going to go back in. I'm going to go see what I missed. And I was like, dang, I'm just like Mael. I can't let it end.
Exactly.
I can't just let it go.
End. Think of how much more content there is.
Yeah. Yeah. And that really resonated with me. And the past few days, I've just been constantly thinking about that of like, it is not healthy for you to lose yourself in a world for too long. You always have to come back to reality, always have to face reality. And yeah, there's like themes of grief and how to let people go. And there's just so much good stuff in this story that I can't help but highly, highly, highly recommend it to people, even though I don't think it's perfect.
I was going to say, you almost quit the game twice.
I almost quit the game.
And by the time you're done, you're like, woo!
Exactly. It's such a weird thing to say. Like, while I was in the middle of it, at multiple points, I was like, this isn't as great as people say it is, but it stuck the landing so dang hard. And there's so many good like highlights of the game that I think it's a masterpiece. I think this is an excellent game.
I wrote up a little tiny thing about it that I haven't published anywhere and probably won't. It was for me. But my takeaway is that like flawed masterpiece is definitely where I put it, because like, yeah, there's no perfect media out there, I'm sure, but you know, some pacing issues here and there. And there was literally like some technical issues in the game. You could feel like, yeah, this is a smaller studio making this with some really big dreams. But man, when I sat back at the end of it, I was like, holy moly, I wish I could experience that for the first time again. Wowee.
Yeah. Like, what did you want to do once you finish that? New Game Plus. Start it again.
Yeah, exactly. New Game Plus. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, to be fair, that is the mark for me of what makes a good game. Because if at the end of the game, I'm like
cool. I'm done.
Next thing.
Nice game. Move on to the next one. Yeah.
I don't think that game has nearly as much of a lasting impact with me as a game where I finish it and I'm like, dang, I'm ready to start a game all over again. And this game definitely had more of that for me. And I mean, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. I know you also haven't been able to stop thinking about it. I think one of the things that has like left the biggest lasting impact is the music.
Yes,
the music is so good.
Actually, like, you know, short of the the story obviously being incredible, all of that kind of stuff, the thing that did stick with me the most in this game is that just top to bottom, the soundtrack is insane. It's so good. Every moment it like pumps up, every moment it makes everything more epic, everything more emotional.
The final boss theme for me just like hits
so good,
so hard, because that like Renoir's theme is so good. Like when you land at Lumiere at the very end and the music just swells and does the Renoir theme there, I'm just like, oh, so good, so good.
I really, really, really enjoyed the use of leitmotifs throughout, which is pretty much just like the idea of like concepts or characters or whatever kind of having their own little like musical phrase or, you know, longer song. Like obviously it's very obvious, like, yes, Alicia has her own like theme music. Maëlle has her own theme music, which is kind of the main theme of the game actually, is Maëlle's theme. But they, even throughout a lot of the like actual songs or moments or whatever, they'll just put in a little bit like, oh yes, that's the Renoir creepy piano riff. That's Renoir's thing. It happens when Renoir shows up, and subconsciously our minds are really good with latching onto those things and making associations and that kind of stuff with them. And then you're set. You're good to go. I will be listening to the game soundtrack on Spotify when all is said and done, which is not usually something I do unless there's like a, you know, I've done that some with Persona 5, because like one of the great strengths of Persona 5 is also an awesome soundtrack. But
it does have a great soundtrack. I haven't played it, but it's still good.
Yes, but time and time again, more than most games I can remember in a very long time, it's just time and again, even just like the most normal moment in the overworld or in a quiet spot in a like offshoot thing, I would just be like, wow, this song is awesome, over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. I cannot give enough ups to Lorien Testard, and also there was two other people pretty heavily involved with the composition of the music, but it was mainly it was his baby. A guy who the developers found on a backwater video game forum, where he had posted some samples of his work.
The story behind like how they find everybody is crazy.
It's like the lead writer of the game, originally just like they did like a, hey guys, we're a small studio. We would love if people could like submit some voice acting work for free, type of things. And she answered that call, and she ended up being the lead writer for the game.
Yeah.
And she's so good.
Which is insane. Like the amount of stuff that happened to get this all together, and like the English voice cast as well is phenomenal, I want to say. Like Ben Starr as Verso, so good. So good. Andy Serkis as Renoir, so good. Those were the two standouts for me. I believe it's Jennifer English as Maëlle.
Yeah.
Also, so good, so incredible. But like everybody like hits their beats, hits their marks, and provides a very, very emotional performance.
I do gotta say, it was like a little bit immersion breaking for me the first time that Maëlle like spoke, and I was like, it's Shadowheart.
Oh yeah. See, I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3.
You haven't played Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah, exactly.
My immersion completely unbroken.
If you ever play Baldur's Gate 3, you're gonna be like, it's Maëlle.
Exactly. It's all in like what you hear it as. Like I play Final Fantasy 16, and Ben Starr is Clive, the main character of Final Fantasy 16. So I couldn't just unhear that. I was like, all right, it's Clive. Clive is here telling me stuff again. All right, cool. But man, the performances in this game are so good. Music is so good. Overall, so good.
I think overall, I mean, it's not a scoring podcast. We never have dreamed up the Shine Get scoring rubric, but I don't know what I could give this game other than a 10 out of 10. Flawed masterpiece, but a masterpiece all the same. I absolutely love my time with this game, and I've been really busy, which makes me really sad. I haven't gotten the chance to go into a lot of that end game kind of content stuff that I can do now that I've beaten the game, but I can't wait to get to it.
Yeah. I'd still say this is like a 9 out of 10, because there are just like problems with it that I cannot overlook. I can't give something that I don't think is perfect a 10 out of 10, but there's so much like heart and soul put into every aspect of this game, and the themes and ending are just so good that I can't like not give it a high score. So there you go. Very good. Love it.
Yep. Excellent. Well, Murph, I guess that concludes our conversation about Clair Obscur Expedition 33. That means we are going to move on to our one recurring segment of the show, and that is our recent pickups. Murph, do you have any recent pickups?
I don't, but I know that you have a recent pickup that might prevent you from playing a little bit more Expedition 33 in the near future.
It's true. Okay, so I picked up Donkey Kong Bonanza, the new, basically Switch 2 launch title, albeit not technically. But I wasn't planning on picking up. I thought it looked cute. It looked kind of fun. And then, the news kind of trickled out. Oh, it was made by the team that made Mario Odyssey. It was made by like the 3D platforming Mario team. I was like, oh, interesting. That's cool. I do love 3D
Nintendo's
platformers.
Premier team.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, I do like 3D platforming games. I enjoyed Odyssey. I had my quibbles and all that kind of stuff. And then the embargoes dropped, and it was like IGN's first 10 out of 10 of the year. I saw some different people whose opinions I trust that were pretty much just like, yeah, this is the best 3D platforming game I've played since Mario Odyssey, and it's probably better than Mario Odyssey. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And so I took the jump, and I've been enjoying it very much so far. And it is easier for me to play DK Bonanza because my wife is also currently obsessed with Expedition 33. So we have compromised by her playing all the Expedition 33 endgame content while I play DK Bonanza on my Switch.
Nice.
And I'm having a grand old time with it. We'll see. It is definitely a little bit simplistic. And I'm looking forward to see what else changes about the game. They're doing a lot of really interesting, really fun things. Before we started, I said it almost feels like an anti-platformer because a huge part of the gameplay loop is like destroying as much of the terrain as possible and kind of making your own
rid of all the platforming stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of traditional 3D platforming elements as well. It hasn't worn out its welcome yet by any means. But yeah, it's also a collectathon. I do kind of love collectathons if Nintendo makes them. So
yeah, the Odyssey team did nothing but surprise and delight you at basically every corner. And so I expect that to be the case for Donkey Kong Bonanza as you continue to play through the game. So you got to let me know how it is, because I'm going to pick it up. I don't know if I'm going to do it exactly now, but that is one that I am going to get.
Yep.
Because it looks awesome.
I would agree, Murph. Well, I wish you very much luck in your rest of playing Expedition 33, and I will even go so far as to wish you happy gaming.
Yep. Thank you for listening/watching. Happy gaming.
Bye-bye.